I'm Eloan Carter, 29 years old. Last year, a drunk driver's reckless crash left me shattered, fighting for life in a coma, my body broken. But the deepest wound wasn't from twisted metal or fractured bones. It came from my own parents, Gideon and Marisette, standing by my hospital bed, their voices cold as ice. "She's a burden," they whispered to the doctors. "Let her go." Not out of love or grief, but greed. They thought my death would unlock a fortune. Their betrayal cut deeper than any pain I'd ever known, a wound I'd never forget. My grandmother, Viana, saw through their masks long before I did. Years ago, she caught my father forging her signature, chasing wealth that wasn't his. She buried that scandal to protect our family's name, but her warning echoed in my heart, "Gideon's chained to money, Eloan. Guard your spirit." I was too young to understand then, too trusting. I never imagined her words would become my reality, that my parents would wish me dead for a fortune they craved. Viana's wisdom was my anchor, but it couldn't prepare me for the betrayal waiting in that hospital room. This isn't just a story of pain, it's about fighting back. I woke from that coma, fueled by their betrayal, determined to reclaim my life. I discovered Viana's secret gift, a $5.2 million inheritance meant for me alone. My parents thought they could steal it, plotting to control me, believing my injuries erased my will. But I outsmarted them. With allies who became my true family, I sold everything they coveted, built a new life, and vanished from their grasp. This is how I turned their greed against them, how I found strength in the ashes of their lies. You'll hear how I confronted them, exposed their truth, and rose above. Stick around to witness a journey from betrayal to triumph, where love, not blood, defines family. If you've ever faced betrayal or fought to rebuild, this story's for you. Like and subscribe to join our community of survivors, sharing tales of resilience. Hit that bell to never miss a story. Your experiences matter, share them below, and let's inspire each other to overcome. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I learned early that love was a scarce commodity in the Carter household. My parents, Gideon and Marisette, built a life that glittered on the outside but felt hollow within. Gideon, a corporate lawyer, was married to his 70-hour workweeks, his briefcase a constant companion. Marisette, a gallery curator, polished her image as the perfect socialite, her smile reserved for guests, never for me. I was Eloan, their daughter, but to them, I was an afterthought, a prop in their curated world. Dinners were silent, my voice drowned by the clink of silverware and their distracted glances. I'd share my day, winning a spelling bee, acing a math test, but their eyes stayed on their plates, their minds elsewhere. "Good job," they'd mutter, if they said anything at all. I craved their pride, their warmth, but it was like reaching for smoke. My childhood home was a mansion, modern and cold, its high ceilings echoing my loneliness. I'd lie awake, wondering what I'd done to be so invisible. Was I too quiet? Too ordinary? I tried harder, perfect grades, debate team captain, but nothing shifted their gaze. They weren't cruel, not in the ways that leave bruises, but their indifference carved a deeper wound. I was 9 when I realized love wasn't guaranteed, even from parents. That truth settled in my bones, heavy and unshakable. Yet, in that emptiness, I found a spark of defiance. I'd prove my worth, not to them, but to myself. Little did I know how their neglect would shape the betrayal waiting years down the road, a betrayal that would nearly cost me everything. When my brother Thane was born, I was 6, hopeful for a sibling to share my world. But Thane didn't just join our family, he reshaped it. Suddenly, Gideon and Marisette had eyes for someone. Thane was their golden child, his every coup a triumph, his every step a parade. By the time he was in school, the pattern was clear, Thane could do no wrong. His C's in math earned proud smiles, my straight A's were expected, dismissed with a shrug. "Why can't you be more like Thane?" Marisette would snap, even as I brought home trophies. Thane's charm, his easy grin, won their hearts in ways my effort never could. The sting deepened at 12, when I poured months into a science fair project, a model rocket I'd built from scratch. I was proud, dreaming of first place. Thane, jealous of the attention, smashed it the night before the fair, leaving shards of my work scattered across the garage. I stood frozen, tears burning, as Marisette stormed in. "You provoked him, Eloan," she said, her voice sharp. "You know he's sensitive." No apology, no consequence for Thane, just blame for me. Gideon nodded, siding with her, as always. Thane smirked, knowing he'd won again. That moment crystallized their favoritism, a wound that never fully healed. I rebuilt the rocket, salvaged third place, but the victory felt hollow. Their bias wasn't just unfair, it was a signal I'd never belong. I stopped seeking their approval, turning inward, my ambition a quiet rebellion. Yet, Thane's shadow loomed, his privilege a constant reminder of my place. Years later, his role in their greed would cut even deeper, a betrayal rooted in the favoritism that defined our childhood. In the midst of that cold, lonely childhood, my grandmother Viana was a beacon of light. Her coastal Oregon home, a weathered cottage perched above the Pacific, was my sanctuary. Summers with her were my escape, a world away from Portland's sterile mansion. Viana's warmth wrapped around me like a blanket, her blue eyes crinkling as she called me her star. We'd bake oatmeal cookies, the kitchen filled with laughter and cinnamon. In her garden, we'd dig in the earth, planting daisies, her hands guiding mine. "You're special, Eloan," she'd say, her voice firm yet kind. "Don't let your father dim your light." She saw what I couldn't, that Gideon and Marisette chased wealth and status, not love. Viana taught me to dream beyond their world, to value heart over hustle. We'd walk the beach at dusk, waves whispering secrets, as she shared stories of her youth, her resilience. She'd point to the stars, saying, "You'll shine brighter than them all." Her belief in me was a lifeline, anchoring me when I felt adrift. Viana's home was more than a place, it was a feeling, safe, seen, loved. She never spoke ill of my parents, but her warnings were clear: some folks lose themselves to greed, Eloan. Stay true. I didn't grasp the weight of her words then, but they rooted deep. Viana was my true family, the one who saw my worth when no one else did. Her love built the strength I'd need years later, when betrayal struck and her legacy became my shield. Without her, I might have crumbled under the weight of what was to come, a betrayal that would test everything she'd taught me. Viana's wisdom carried a shadow I didn't fully see until later. She knew my father, Gideon, better than anyone, and what she knew was troubling. Years before I was born, she caught him forging her signature on a business deal, siphoning funds for a venture that failed. It was a betrayal she buried to protect the family name, to shield Gideon from ruin. But it cost her trust. "He's chained to money, Eloan," she told me one summer, her voice low, eyes distant. "Guard your spirit from that kind of hunger." I was too young to grasp the depth of her warning, too innocent to imagine Gideon's greed would one day turn on me. Viana never shared the full story, but her words painted a picture: a man who'd risk family for wealth, a man who'd never change. She'd watch him at holiday dinners, his charm masking ambition, and shake her head, a silent prayer for me. "Some folks chase what glitters," she said, "and lose what matters." I'd nod, thinking it a lesson for another day. But Viana was preparing me, planting seeds of caution. She knew Gideon's past could resurface, that his hunger for control might one day threaten me. Her silence on the scandal was her sacrifice, but her warnings were her gift. They lingered in my heart, a quiet alarm I'd only hear when it was almost too late. Years later, in a hospital bed, I'd recall her words as Gideon's true nature emerged, plotting with Marisette and Thane to claim a fortune that wasn't theirs. Viana's foresight would save me, her legacy a shield against the betrayal rooted in that long-ago scandal, a betrayal that would push me to fight for my life and my freedom. Leaving home at 18 was my first taste of freedom, but it came with a price. I earned a partial scholarship to Oregon State University, studying computer science, chasing a dream of building something that mattered. But my parents, Gideon and Marisette, refused to help. Learn responsibility, they said, their voices cold, while they paid every cent of Thane's law school tuition. The unfairness stung, but I swallowed it, determined to prove I didn't need them. To survive, I worked 3 jobs: barista by dawn, tutor by afternoon, freelance coder by midnight. My days blurred into a grind of coffee steam, lecture halls, and glowing screens. Sleep was a luxury, exhaustion was my shadow. I'd collapse on my dorm bed, hands cramped from typing, eyes burning, but I kept going. Every paycheck, every grade, was a quiet rebellion against their neglect. I juggled 18-credit semesters with 40-hour workweeks, my body screaming for rest, but my heart refused to break. I wasn't just earning a degree, I was earning my worth. Gideon once called, asking why I never visited. "I'm busy surviving," I said, and he hung up, uninterested. Marisette sent a birthday card with no message, just her signature, as if I were a stranger. Their indifference fueled me, pushing me to graduate with honors, debt minimal, spirit intact. I walked across that stage alone, no family in the crowd, but I felt taller than ever. Oregon State was my battleground, where I forged resilience from pain. Those years taught me I could stand without them, a lesson that would save me when their betrayal came. But back then, I was just a Loan, fighting for a future I could call my own. By 27, I'd carved a place for myself in the world. I landed a job at Health Tech Innovations, a Portland startup revolutionizing patient care. As a product manager, I led a team building an app that simplified medical systems, helping patients navigate hospitals with dignity. My work wasn't just code, it was hope for people lost in bureaucracy. I poured my heart into it, staying late to tweak designs, meeting with doctors to perfect features. My team trusted me, my ideas shaped lives, and for the first time, I felt seen. The CEO noticed, praising my presentations, hinting at a promotion that could change everything. I thrived in that office, surrounded by screens and purpose, my name on awards for innovation. But Gideon and Marisette barely registered my success. Holiday calls were tense, their questions about my job shallow, their attention drifting to Thane's latest scheme. "He's starting a firm," they'd boast, as if my work meant nothing. I'd hang up, their dismissal a familiar ache, but I didn't let it dim my fire. Health tech was my proof, I didn't need their pride to shine. I built partnerships, streamlined systems, and saw our app save a patient's life when it caught a misdiagnosis. That moment, reading a thank you letter from her family, was worth every sleepless night. My career was my refuge, a world where effort mattered, where I wasn't invisible. I was a Loan Carter, rising star, building a legacy of impact. Yet, beneath the success, a quiet fear lingered. I sensed my parents' greed, their eyes on something I didn't yet understand. My success was mine, but it wouldn't shield me from the betrayal brewing, a storm I couldn't see coming. Then came Soren Vale, the man who changed how I saw myself. We met at a health tech conference, his quiet confidence catching my eye as he spoke about data science with passion. He was 30, kind, with a smile that felt like home. Our first coffee date stretched into hours, talking about code, dreams, and the stars we'd chase. Soren saw me, not the overlooked daughter, but a Loan, whole and enough. He listened when I shared my childhood scars, his hand on mine, steadying my heart. We built a life together, small moments stacking into something real. Sunday hikes in Forest Park, cooking pasta in his tiny kitchen, laughing over burnt sauce. He'd tease me about my endless to-do lists, then help me tackle them. Soren was my partner, my safe harbor. One night, over dinner by Portland's waterfront, he took my hand, eyes soft. "You're my home, Eloan," he said. "Move in with me. Let's build something ours." My heart soared, fear and joy colliding. I said yes, imagining a future where love wasn't a fight. That night, we planned new furniture, shared routines, our voices bright with possibility. Soren's love was a gift I hadn't known I deserved, a warmth that thawed the chill of my past. He didn't erase Gideon and Marisette's neglect, but he showed me I could be loved without proving my worth. I leaned into that love, letting it anchor me. But even Soren's strength couldn't stop the storm ahead. The night he proposed our future was the last before everything shattered, before a crash and a betrayal that would test us both. Soren's love gave me courage, but I'd need more than courage to survive what was coming. In my sophomore year at Oregon State, I found a letter that shifted my world. Tucked inside a book Viana had given me, her handwriting caught my eye. "My dearest Eloan," it began, "one day, my wealth will be yours, a gift to free you from their chains." My breath caught. Viana's wealth? I'd never thought of her modest cottage as hiding riches. She wrote of her estate, properties, investments, meant to give me a life beyond Gideon and Marisette's grasp. "They chase what glitters," she warned, "but you, my star, must choose heart over hustle." Her words stirred a quiet dread. What would my parents do if they knew? I hid the letter, its weight heavy in my chest. Viana's love had always been my shield, but this was different, a promise that felt like a target. I didn't tell anyone, not even Soren years later, fearing the truth would spark their greed. Gideon's rare calls, probing about Viana's health, took on new meaning. "Is she still sharp?" he'd ask, his voice too casual. Marisette's holiday gifts, suddenly lavish, felt like bribes. I pushed the letter to the back of my mind, focusing on my degree, my career, my life with Soren. But Viana's words lingered, a warning I couldn't ignore. She'd seen Gideon's hunger, his past betrayal of her trust, and she'd planned to protect me. Her letter was a lifeline, a secret I guarded fiercely. I didn't know then how soon I'd need it, how Viana's gift would become my salvation when my parents' greed turned deadly. That letter, written in her steady hand, was her final act of love, a beacon that would guide me through the darkness of their betrayal, a darkness I was hurtling toward without knowing. It was a night that started with triumph. I just presented our patient care app to HealthTech's CEO, my heart racing as he leaned forward, nodding, hinting at a promotion that could redefine my career. Soren and I celebrated at a waterfront restaurant in Portland, our laughter mingling with the clink of wine glasses, our dreams of moving in together painting the future bright. The rain started as I left, a soft drizzle turning fierce as I drove home along the winding coastal road. I was singing to the radio, my mind on Soren's smile, when headlights blinded me. A drunk driver, swerving across the center line, slammed into my car with a force that stole my breath. Metal screamed, glass shattered, and my world spun. The car careened off the road, tumbling down a cliff, each jolt a hammer to my bones. I felt my body break, ribs cracking, legs twisting, pain searing through me like fire. The last thing I saw was rain streaking through the cracked windshield, the last thing I heard was my own scream fading into silence. Darkness swallowed me whole, a void where time stopped. I didn't know if I'd wake, if I'd ever see Soren again, or if this was the end. My life, my dreams, hung by a thread I couldn't grasp. I was 29, on the cusp of everything I'd fought for, and in that moment, it was slipping away. I didn't know then that the crash was only the beginning of my pain, that the true devastation wasn't the twisted metal or the blood, but the betrayal waiting in the hospital. The drunk driver had stolen my safety, but my own family would try to steal my life. That night, as my car lay broken at the cliff's base, I was hurtling toward a truth so cruel it would shatter the girl I'd been, forcing me to become someone stronger, someone who'd fight to survive what was coming. Waking up was like clawing through quicksand. My eyes fluttered open to sterile white walls, the beep of a heart monitor cutting through a fog of pain. My body was a map of agony: fractured legs, a broken arm, cracked ribs, a punctured lung, a concussion that made my thoughts swim. Every breath burned, every movement a battle. I was alive, but barely. Dr. Willem Carver, the trauma surgeon, stood over me, his voice steady but kind. "You're a miracle, Eloan," he said. "You shouldn't have survived that crash." His words were a lifeline, but I couldn't feel relief. I was trapped in a body that felt foreign, tubes and bandages tethering me to the bed. Nurse Lyrian Holt became my anchor, her gentle hands adjusting my her soft words calming my panic. "You're stronger than you know," she'd whisper, checking my chart, her presence a warmth in the cold hospital room. I clung to her kindness, to the hope that I could heal. Soren visited daily, his eyes red from sleepless nights, holding my hand as I drifted in and out of consciousness. "I'm here," he'd say, his voice breaking. "We'll get through this." But the pain wasn't just physical. A shadow loomed, a fear I couldn't name. My parents hadn't come, hadn't called. Their absence was a familiar ache, but it felt heavier now, laced with something darker. I'd ask Lyrian about them, and her eyes would flicker, hesitant. "They'll come," she'd say, but her tone lacked conviction. I didn't know what awaited me, didn't know their voices would soon cut deeper than any injury. My body was fighting to live, but my heart was bracing for something worse. The hospital was my cage, my battlefield, where I'd learn the cost of survival. Viana's lessons echoed faintly: stay true, guard your spirit, but I wasn't ready for the truth about to unfold, a truth that would make the crash seem like mercy. The moment that broke me wasn't the crash, it was their words. I was fading in and out, the hospital's hum a distant lullaby, when I heard them. Gideon and Marisette, my parents, stood at the foot of my bed, their voices low but sharp, slicing through my haze. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing shallow, pretending to be unconscious, some instinct warning me to listen. "She's a burden," Gideon said, his tone clipped, like he was discussing a business deal. "The bills are piling up, and she might not recover fully. Let her go." My heart stopped, not from pain, but from disbelief. "Let her go?" Marisette's voice followed, softer but colder. "It's for the best. Viana's gone now. The estate's at stake." Viana, my grandmother, was dead? The words hit like a second crash, grief and betrayal colliding. They weren't here to comfort me, they were here for money. My injuries, my fight to live, were inconveniences to their greed. I wanted to scream, to confront them, but my body wouldn't move, my voice trapped in my throat. Their footsteps faded, leaving me with the heart monitor's relentless beep and a wound no doctor could mend. They'd always favored Thane, dismissed my worth, but this? Willing my death for an inheritance I didn't even know about. It was a knife to my soul. I lay there, tears slipping silently, replaying every cold dinner, every ignored achievement. Had they ever loved me? Or was I always a means to an end? Lyrian found me shaking, her hand on mine, but I couldn't speak the truth yet. Their betrayal was a poison, seeping into my fight to survive. But it also lit a fire. I wouldn't let them win. Viana's love, her belief in me, was stronger than their greed. I'd live, not for them, but for her, for me, for the fight they didn't think I had. The betrayal didn't stop with their words, it grew darker. In the fog of my recovery, I clung to a memory from my coma, a whisper that felt like Viana's voice: "Fight, my girl." It was her strength, her love, urging me to hold on. But my parents' scheming deepened the wound. Lyrian, my nurse, pulled me aside one night, her face tight with worry. "Your father's been asking about your records," she said. "He wanted access, said it was for insurance." I didn't trust him. My stomach churned. Gideon wasn't checking on my health, he was hunting for clues about Viana's estate. I'd learned from their first visit that she'd passed, her wealth a secret they thought they could claim. But there was more. During another visit, I feigned unconsciousness again, my body still, my ears straining. Marisette's voice was a hiss, laced with desperation. "If she dies, the estate's ours by default," she said. "She's not waking up whole, Gideon. We can't afford to wait." Thane was there too, silent but present, his complicity a fresh cut. They weren't just hoping I'd die, they were counting on it. My own family, plotting my end for money I hadn't even known existed. The room spun, not from my injuries, but from the weight of their greed. Viana's warnings from years ago, her tales of Gideon's hunger for wealth, flooded back, now sharp and real. I was their daughter, their sister, yet they saw me as an obstacle. Lyrian and Soren became my shield, their loyalty a stark contrast to my family's betrayal. I whispered to Soren that night, "They want me gone." His eyes hardened, promising to stand by me. The hospital bed was my war zone, where I realized I'd have to fight not just for my body, but for my future. Viana's voice echoed again, "Fight," and I vowed to survive, to turn their betrayal into my strength, to claim what was mine before they could. In the sterile haze of my hospital room, a single email changed everything. My hands trembled as I opened it on a borrowed tablet, the screen's glow harsh against my battered body. It was from Nerys Langston, a name I vaguely recalled as my grandmother Viana's lawyer. Her words hit like a thunderbolt. Viana had left me her entire estate, $5.2 million, a coastal mansion in Oregon, a mountain cabin, and investments I never knew existed. I was her sole heir, chosen to carry her legacy. My heart raced, not with joy, but with dread. This was the fortune my parents, Gideon and Marisette, had whispered about, the reason they'd called me a burden, the prize they thought my death would secure. Viana's death, revealed in their cold hospital talk, now made sense. She'd been their obstacle, and now I was. The email laid bare their greed, their willingness to let me die for money they believed was theirs. I reread Nerys's words, her formal tone hiding a lifeline. "Viana trusted you, Eloan. This is yours to protect." Protect? From my own family? The weight of it crushed me, mingling with the pain of my fractures and the sting of their betrayal. I was alive, but barely, and now I held a secret that made me a target. Soren sat beside me, his face tight as I whispered the truth. "They knew," I said, my voice breaking. "They knew about this." The hospital walls closed in, my mind spinning with Viana's love and my parents' malice. That email wasn't just an inheritance, it was a call to fight, a spark igniting the strength I'd need to outmaneuver the family who'd abandoned me for wealth. I couldn't face this alone, not with my body broken and my heart shattered. Soren became my voice, dialing Nerys Langston from the hospital phone, his hand steadying mine as I spoke. Nerys's voice was calm, professional, but carried a warmth that reminded me of Viana. "Your grandmother planned this carefully, Eloan," she said. "Her will is ironclad, designed to protect you." She confirmed the $5.2 million estate, every detail matching the email, mansion, cabin, investments, all in my name. But then came the chilling truth. Gideon had already tried to claim it. Days after my crash, he'd contacted Nerys, demanding access as my guardian, spinning lies about my condition. "He said you were incapacitated," Nerys told me, her tone sharp with disdain. I refused. "Without your consent, he gets nothing." My father's audacity burned, his greed moving faster than his concern for me. Nerys explained Viana's foresight. She'd known Gideon's hunger, his history of chasing wealth at any cost. The will locked him out, naming me alone, with Nerys as its fierce guardian. I felt Viana's love through her words, her trust in me a shield against my parents' schemes. But fear gnawed at me. Gideon wouldn't stop, not with millions at stake. Marisette and Thane were surely with him, their hospital whispers proof of their alliance. Soren squeezed my hand, his eyes promising we'd fight. Nerys vowed to secure the estate, transferring assets to accounts only I could touch. "You're not alone," she said, and I clung to that. The hospital bed was my war room, where I began to see the battlefield. Viana's will wasn't just wealth, it was power, and I'd need every ounce of it to face the family who saw my life as a price worth paying. Nerys sent me something that shook me to my core, a video Viana had recorded years before, meant for me alone. Her face filled the tablet screen, her blue eyes steady, her voice a mix of love and steel. "Eloan, my star," she began, "if you're watching this, I'm gone, and you're facing what I feared." She spoke of Gideon, my father, with a sorrow I'd never heard. "He betrayed my trust long ago," she said, "forging my name to steal funds, chasing wealth that nearly ruined us." I froze, remembering her warnings by the sea, her hints about his greed. Viana had buried that scandal to protect our family, but it cost her faith in him. "His hunger never faded," she continued. "Guard your heart, your future, from him." Then came a blow I hadn't expected. Thane, my brother, had forged my signature on a loan in high school, a debt Viana quietly paid to shield me. My golden child brother, complicit in their greed even then. The betrayal stung fresh, his silence in the hospital now heavy with guilt. Viana's voice grew fierce. "I left you everything, my wealth, my love, to free you from their chains. Trust Nerys, trust yourself." Her words were a beacon, illuminating the darkness of my family's motives. Gideon's probing, Marisette's cold calculations, Thane's quiet presence, they were all part of a plan Viana had foreseen. Her video was more than a warning, it was a call to arms. I felt her strength in me, her belief that I could rise above their malice. The hospital's hum faded as I replayed her words, my resolve hardening. Viana had given me the tools to fight, and I wouldn't let her down. Her legacy would be my weapon against the family who'd tried to erase me. Their betrayal was a fire, but I'd turn it into steel. My parents and Thane thought my injuries had broken me, that my mind was too clouded to fight. They were wrong. I'd heard them plotting again, whispering in my hospital room about a conservatorship, believing my brain injury erased my memory. "She won't remember," Marisette said, her voice smug. "We'll control the estate." I lay still, feigning sleep, my heart pounding as I recorded their words on a hidden device Soren had slipped me. Every syllable was proof of their greed, their willingness to strip me of my freedom for Viana's millions. That recording was my power, a weapon I'd wield when the time came. I wasn't the girl they'd ignored anymore, not the sister Thane overshadowed, not the daughter they'd wished dead. I was Eloan Carter, Viana's heir, and I'd outsmart them. Soren sat by me that night, his face fierce with loyalty. "They'll regret this," I whispered, my voice low but unshakable. "They'll regret underestimating me." He nodded, his hand in mine, a silent vow to stand with me. Nerys was ready, securing Viana's estate, while Lyrian and Dr. Carver guarded my recovery, their kindness a shield against my family's poison. I saw the path ahead, a fight not just for wealth, but for my life, my truth. Viana's lessons, her love, her warnings, were my guide. She'd taught me to choose hard over hustle, and now I'd choose strength over surrender. The hospital was no longer my prison, it was my forge, shaping me for the battle to come. My family thought they'd won, but they'd only awakened me. I'd claim what was mine, expose their greed, and vanish from their lives, a survivor they'd never break. My body was a battlefield, scarred and broken from the crash, but I refused to let it define me. Every day in the hospital was a fight to reclaim myself, fueled by the sting of my parents' betrayal. Physical therapy was brutal, muscles screaming, bones aching, sweat stinging my eyes as I gripped a walker, forcing my shattered legs to move. Each step was defiance, a silent vow to Gideon, Marisette, and Thane that I wouldn't stay down. Soren was there, cheering every inch forward, his voice steady when mine wavered. Nurse Lyrian adjusted my braces, her encouragement a lifeline. Dr. Carver tracked my progress, marveling at my will. "You're rewriting your story, Eloan," he said, and I believed him. I pushed through pain that would have broken me before, picturing my parents' cold faces, their words, "Let her go," spurring me on. My ribs healed slowly, my lungs fought for air, but my spirit grew stronger. I wasn't just healing, I was forging armor. Late nights, when exhaustion hit, I'd clutch Viana's memory, her voice whispering, "You're my star." Her love was my fuel, her trust in me a fire that burned brighter than their greed. Soren, Lyrian, and Carver became my family, their belief in me a mirror reflecting my strength. I learned to walk again, first with a walker, then a cane, each step a brick in the wall I'd build against my past. The hospital wasn't my cage anymore, it was my crucible, shaping me into someone they couldn't touch. My recovery wasn't just physical, it was a reclaiming of my power, a foundation for the fight ahead. I'd rise, not for them, but for Viana, for me, for the life they thought they'd stolen. But strength didn't come without cracks. One afternoon in therapy, as I struggled with my cane, a wave of fear crashed over me. My chest tightened, breath came in gasps, the room blurring as my heart pounded like a trapped bird. I saw Gideon's face, Marisette's cold eyes, Thane's smirk, their voices echoing, plotting to take Viana's estate, to erase me. What if they found me? What if they won? The thought suffocated me, my cane slipping as I sank to the floor, hands shaking, mind spiraling. Lyrian knelt beside me, her voice calm but firm. "Breathe, Eloan. You're here, you're safe." She guided me through slow breaths, her hand on my shoulder grounding me. As the panic ebbed, she shared her own story, a toxic family she'd escaped, their control a shadow she'd outrun. "You're stronger than their poison," she said, her eyes fierce with truth. Her words pierced the fog, reminding me I wasn't alone. Soren arrived, his face tight with worry, holding me as I steadied. The attack left me raw, but it also clarified my fight. My fear wasn't weakness, it was proof I was alive, proof I had something worth protecting. Viana's lessons echoed, choose heart over hustle, strength over surrender. Lyrian's story became my mirror, she'd survived, and so would I. I vowed to keep moving, to turn my fear into fuel. The panic had shaken me, but it hadn't broken me. It showed me the stakes, the life I'd fight for, the freedom I'd claim. My family thought me fragile, a burden to discard, but they'd misjudged me. That moment, trembling on the therapy floor, was where I found my resolve to outmaneuver them, to reclaim my life with a strength they'd never see coming. With my body healing and my resolve hardened, I struck back where it hurt them most. Nerys Langston, Viana's lawyer, worked tirelessly from her office, transferring Viana's estate to my name, $5.2 million, the coastal mansion, the mountain cabin, the investments. Every asset was mine, locked beyond Gideon's grasp. But I didn't want to hold their prize, I wanted to destroy their dream. I told Nerys to sell it all. The mansion, with its ocean views, went for millions. The cabin, nestled in the Cascades, found a buyer fast. Investments were liquidated, every dollar secured in accounts only I could touch. By the end, I had $4.8 million, a fortune my parents had coveted, now untouchable. The decision wasn't easy. Viana's properties held memories of her love, our summers baking, gardening, dreaming. But keeping them would have tied me to their greed, their betrayal. Selling was my rebellion, a way to sever their hold. Nerys handled every detail, her voice steady on calls, assuring me the funds were safe. Soren supported my choice, his eyes proud as I signed the papers, my hands steady despite the pain of letting go. I imagined Gideon's rage, Marisette's shock, Thane's silence when they learned their prize was gone. They'd thought my injuries made me weak, that my coma erased my fight. They were wrong. This was my first victory, a blow to their schemes. The money wasn't just wealth, it was freedom, a chance to build a life they couldn't touch. Viana's legacy wasn't in those properties, it was in me, in my strength to walk away. Selling the estate was my declaration. I'd live on my terms, free from their chains, ready to face them with the power they'd never expected me to wield. The money was mine, but I wanted it to mean more than wealth. My hospital bill loomed, $412,000, a crushing weight for anyone fighting to survive. I paid it in full, a quiet triumph over the burden Gideon had called me. But I didn't stop there. I saw patients in the trauma ward, abandoned by families, their eyes hollow with fear. I'd been them, left to die by those who should have loved me. I donated $600,000 to a fund for those patients, ensuring they'd have care, hope, a chance to heal. Every dollar was a defiance of my parents' greed, a tribute to Viana's heart. Then, in secret, I gave $100,000 to Lyrian's nursing fund, a scholarship for caregivers like her who'd saved me with kindness. I didn't tell her, it wasn't about gratitude, it was about paying forward the love she'd shown me. Giving felt like shedding chains, each donation a step toward freedom. The money that Gideon, Marisette, and Thane had craved became a force for good, a legacy of healing, not destruction. I imagined their fury, their plans crumbling as I turned their prize into something they'd never understand, compassion. Soren held me as I finalized the donations, his voice soft with pride. "You're unstoppable," he said, and I felt it. Viana's lessons guided me, heart over hustle, love over greed. The hospital, once my prison, became my launch pad, where I reclaimed my power by giving it away. Those acts of generosity weren't just for others, they were for me, proof I was more than their betrayal, more than their daughter. I was Aloan, Viana's heir, building a life of purpose they couldn't touch. With the estate sold and the money shared, I was ready to face them, to show them the strength they'd awakened in me. The day of reckoning came in a sterile hospital meeting room, its gray walls as cold as my resolve. I was stronger now, my cane a symbol of survival, not weakness. Gideon, Marisette, and Thane sat across from me, their faces a mask of false concern, their eyes hungry for Viana's wealth. They thought I was broken, a pawn in their game, unaware I'd sold the estate they craved. Soren stood by my side, his presence a quiet strength, while Nerys Langston, Viana's lawyer, waited nearby, her briefcase holding proof of my victory. I'd planned this moment meticulously, fueled by their betrayal, those hospital whispers, their wish for my death to claim millions. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with purpose. I saw Viana's face, her blue eyes urging me to fight, her love my armor against their greed. They expected compliance, a daughter too weak to resist, but I was Aloan Carter, Viana's heir, ready to shatter their illusions. The air was thick with tension, their smug glances betraying their confidence. They didn't know I held a weapon, their own words, recorded, ready to expose their truth. This wasn't just a meeting, it was my battlefield, where I'd reclaim my life and end their hold forever. I pressed play on the device, my hands steady despite the storm inside. Their voices filled the room, Gideon's clipped tone, Marisette's icy agreement, Thane's damning silence. "She's a burden," Gideon had said, urging doctors to let me die. "The estate's at stake," Marisette whispered, plotting to seize Viana's millions. The conservatorship scheme echoed, their belief I'd forget sealing their guilt. Their faces drained of color, eyes wide, as their own words betrayed them. Gideon stammered, "That's not what we meant," but his voice cracked, hollow. Marisette's hands shook, her poise crumbling. Thane stared at the table, his golden child facade shattered. I leaned forward, my voice low but fierce. "You thought I wouldn't remember. You thought I'd die." The room was silent, their excuses suffocating under the weight of truth. Soren's hand brushed mine, a silent anchor, while Nerys watched, her eyes sharp with approval. The recording was my sword, cutting through their lies, exposing the greed that drove them to abandon me. Viana's warnings had prepared me for this, her strength flowing through me. They'd underestimated me, believing my injuries erased my fight. Now, they faced Eloan, awake, alive, and unafraid, ready to bury their schemes with the truth they couldn't deny. I pulled Viana's letter from my pocket, its worn edges a testament to her love. "You'll hear from her now," I said, my voice steady, eyes locked on theirs. I read aloud, each word a hammer to their greed. "Eloan, my star, I left you everything to free you from their chains," Viana wrote, her warning clear. "Gideon's hunger knows no bounds, Thane follows his shadow." She spoke of Gideon's forgery, Thane's fraud, betrayals she'd buried to protect me. Marisette flinched, Gideon's jaw tightened, Thane's head dropped lower. "She trusted me," I said, folding the letter, "not you." I revealed the estate's fate, sold, $4.8 million secured, beyond their reach. Their gasps were sharp, their dream collapsing. Viana's words were my shield, her foresight my weapon. She'd known they'd come for her wealth, but she'd chosen me, her star, to rise above their malice. I felt her presence, her belief in me, as I faced the family who'd wished me dead. The letter wasn't just proof, it was my legacy, a call to honor her by breaking free. They'd thought they could control me, but Viana's love had given me the strength to outmaneuver them, to claim my future on my terms. I stood, my cane firm, my voice ablade. "You're not my family," I said, staring into Gideon's eyes, Marisette's, Thane's. "You never were." Their betrayal, wishing my death, plotting for wealth, was a wound I'd turned into power. I told them of my donations, $600,000 for trauma patients, $100,000 for nurses like Lyrian, $412,000 to erase my hospital debt. Their fortune, their obsession, was now a force for good, a legacy they'd never touch. Gideon's face twisted, Marisette's eyes glistened with rage, Thane's silence screamed guilt. "You lost," I said, my words final. "I'm free." I walked out, Soren at my side, Neres following, the door closing on their stunned faces. Viana's lessons, heart over hustle, love over greed, guided my steps. I wasn't running, I was rising, leaving behind a family who'd never see me again. The hospital faded behind me, my cane tapping a rhythm of triumph. I'd faced them, exposed their truth, and claimed my life. Eloan Carter wasn't their daughter anymore, she was a survivor, Viana's heir, a woman who'd turned betrayal into strength. They'd never find me, never touch the life I'd build, a life of purpose, love, and freedom they'd never understand. I vanished from their world, leaving Gideon, Marisette, and Thane behind forever. Soren and I built a new life far from Portland, in a quiet coastal town where the ocean's rhythm soothed my scars. Our home was small, warm, filled with laughter and love, a sanctuary they'd never find. I started a non-profit with Viana's remaining millions, funding trauma care for those abandoned, like I'd been. Each life we touched was a victory over their greed. My cane was gone, my body healed, but Viana's lessons stayed, heart over hustle, love over wealth. Soren's hand in mine was my anchor, his belief in me a light that never dimmed. I was Eloan Carter, no longer their daughter, but a survivor, free to write my story. The past was a shadow, but my future was dawn, bright, boundless, mine. They'd never know this peace, this purpose, this life I'd claimed. At a gala for our nonprofit, I stood before a crowd, sharing my story, not of pain, but of triumph. Strangers became allies, their applause a chorus of hope. That night, I opened my journal, a gift from Viana, its pages now filled with my journey. I wrote of the crash, the betrayal, the fight to rise. Each word was a release, a testament to my strength. I wrote of Soren's love, Neres's loyalty, Lyrian's kindness, my true family, who'd carried me through. Viana's voice echoed in every line, "You're my star." My journal wasn't just a record, it was a promise to live boldly, to honor her by helping others heal. I closed it, smiling, knowing I'd turned her legacy into light. The gala's energy lingered, a reminder that my story could inspire, could spark change. I was no longer running, I was soaring, free, unstoppable. This story is yours, too, if you've ever fought betrayal or rebuilt from ashes. You're not alone, your strength is your light. Like and subscribe to join our community of survivors, where we share tales of resilience and hope. Hit that bell to never miss a story that could lift you higher. Your voice matters, share your journey in the comments below, and let's inspire each other to rise. Together, we can turn pain into purpose, just as I did. Keep fighting, keep shining, because your story, like mine, is worth telling. Let's build a world where love, not greed, defines us.